Hi everyone, Jeremy Edge with Escapingthe.com. The school year is about to start, and that means for a lot of teenagers it can be really hard to move away from the summer schedule, away from sleeping in, away from video games, and towards a schedule that is a lot more rigorous than the summertime. A lot of times teenagers can get used to playing a lot of video games, not having to work, not having to do very much. Sometimes they do, but a lot of times they've gotten used to this habit of spending a lot of time on devices. And so for a lot of times, parents can find a lot of struggle with knowing how to navigate this healthy transition back to the school year. So I've got 4 tips to help parents of teenagers who play video games to move towards a healthier dynamic into the school year. The first thing I always encourage all teens and parents to help move towards healthy dynamics when they're moving away from games. In the evenings, after they complete their homework, it's natural to spend some time online. But to transition away from a game can be very difficult. I have parents come to me in my practice and say, well, it's really hard for them to get off of the device. If they're watching a show or they're playing something on a game, they get really upset when we have to turn it off or we have to go do something else. So these are a couple of things that can help with that process. If possible, stop the game or the screen use at a natural stopping point. Now, what that can look like is if they're playing Roblox, for example, and they need to complete just a few more pieces to complete their building, or they have to complete this little level to be able to get to a good stopping point. Now, a lot of games don't have stopping points. You can play a game for long, long periods of time and with no real end to it. But sometimes there can be a natural place to stop. They've completed either a quest or they've just gathered a lot of resources. Then they can save their game and then they can move towards something else. They can stop the game and move towards something else. These natural stopping points can be a really good place to then transition away from the game. They still may not want to. They still may like, well, I want to try this again or I want to jump into another match. But it's during those times when it can be good to be able to move towards something else. That brings us to our next point. Is it's really good to be able um, to move towards another activity. So whenever that transition happens, we're moving away from the game towards something else. Let's move towards maybe if they've got dinner ready or if they have got to do some homework or if there's some other activity that they can do that does not mean just sitting there and doing nothing. A lot of times if teens say, well, I've got nothing to do, I've got nothing to move towards. And so it can be good to ask them, well, what do you want to do instead? What's something else that you can do with your time? But if possible, to have an activity that they can move towards whenever they get off the device can be really good to transition well. It's good if possible as parents to give 2 warnings. Now, for teenagers, I really encourage the teenager to be aware of their time online. Give them a clock to be able to know how much time they're spending online. But if possible, give them, a little bit of warning. Hey, in half an hour, we're going to get dinner. Okay. Hey, in 10 minutes, we're going to have to stop this to go get some dinner. Okay. So we got to wrap it up. So that way it gives them a little bit of warning, a little bit of understanding of, okay, I need to wrap up what I'm doing in order to go to this next activity, whatever it may be. It's also good to let them turn off the device or the devices. If possible, be able to say, okay, we have to stop, we got to go do something else, and then let them turn off the device, turn off the screens. This may naturally happen, but for a lot of us parents, it can be really frustrating if they don't listen to us or they don't move whenever we say, hey, we got to go. And we can naturally turn off that laptop or turn off the screen. When we do that, it doesn't give them much autonomy or independence or control. And that can cause a lot of frustrations, a lot of blow-ups. When need be, when possible, really try to give them the opportunity to turn off the device. The next tip I would give is to have specific gaming time frames. And so after responsibilities, it's good to provide maybe a time frame where they could game. Now, 2 hours here, like this example of 6 to 8, can be the max, right? Usually teenagers don't have that much free time in their evenings. They're doing a lot of homework. They've got extracurricular activities. They've got sports. So they don't have too much time. But if they've completed all their responsibilities, all their homework, all their chores, and they do have free time, it can be okay, I think, for around 2 hours for them to be able to relax and to game and to unwind. Now, you know your child best. You know your teenager best. And so if 2 hours is too much, then okay, then reduce it. But during that time frame, it's good to give them that freedom to be able to relax, to talk with friends, and to play. But before or after that time frame, it's good to give them no access to games. They don't have access to it. Let's say like when they get home at 4:30, and so 5 o'clock comes around. Hey, I really want to jump off with my friends. Well, sorry, we got to wait a little bit. It gives them the opportunity to explore and to do other things that is outside of this device. If they start to associate gaming with the only way they can relax, then that can start to become problematic if that's the only way they relax. If it's the only way they feel like they're able to relax or to unwind, then it's good to be able to move towards, okay, so what else can you do? What else could you do instead, or go on a walk, to be able to still relax and unwind, but doesn't have to be this one thing. It's good to create space to relax and recharge outside of this gaming time frame. So again, before or after, it's good to be able to say, well, what could you do? Maybe it's going to walk if the weather isn't too bad. If we're able to read a book or play even like a board game, or just chill and to find something else to do. These things are good to be able to do. So there are other fun activities that they can associate fun with, things that are not related to a device. It's also good to separate school from play, or work from play. And you can do this by two different ways, with locations and with devices. What that means is whenever they have homework to do, it's good to have a set location in the home to do homework. Let's say it's at the dining room table. They're able to spread out, get all their homework done, and the dining room table is, in their minds, associated with work and with school, and getting things done. Now, when they're done with school, when they're done with work, then they can move towards the living room or the playroom or their room that has the gaming device, let's say. And that's where they can unwind, that's where they can relax, and that's where they can really focus on play. When they're at the dining room, it's work, but when they're in their game room, it's all play. And the same thing with devices. They have a laptop that's just for school, let's say a Chromebook just for school, then let them just have that just be for school. It's not put Discord, it's not put Steam or any gaming related stuff on that school laptop. The school may not allow it, but if they do have that access, let's not allow that. And so when they are done with all that, then they can play on their device, their computer, their Xbox, PlayStation, whatever it may be, that does have that gaming stuff. So that way it's a clear separation. If they only have one device, if they only have one computer, let's say, for gaming and for school, have two different accounts. So one account can be just for school, and one account can be just for games. That way they can transition, if possible, to go from clearly one to the other. Now, the next tip is to be able to provide praise whenever possible, whenever you see positive choices being made. This can come from their academics, from their relationships, with their self-care, and their self-control. Whenever you see them doing something positive in any area in their life, just point it out. You don't have to make a big deal out of it, but just, hey, I like how you were kind here to your sister, or I like how you came to the dinner table when your father asked you the first time, or your dad asked you, right? You don't have to make a big deal out of it, but just point it out a little bit whenever you see them make positive choices can go a long way, especially with teenagers. With positive reinforcement, it's good to be able to provide it with a couple of different ways. It can be verbal, just strictly, hey, good job with this. It can be with our body language, right? Like, hey, good job with this, right? Our tone of voice, our inflection, our facial features. Teenagers may roll their eyes, or they may not like it too much, but the more that we're able to have a positive interaction or positive praise, that can be a good thing. Positive touch can look like high five, fist pump, even a hug or a side hug. Just something that encourages, says, hey, I'm proud of you, this is good. Privileges can also be encouraged. And so what that can look like is something at the end of the week, hey, you get to pick the movie we go to this weekend, or you get to hang out with your friends a little bit longer than the prior week. Something that is an incentive for them to continue to make positive choices. If possible, it's good to have a good rule of 5 positives to 1 negative interaction. Now, it doesn't happen all the time in a perfect world, but it's good to have that be the goal. To be able to focus on how we can have 5 positive interactions, 5 positive, just quick, good, interactions together, to 1 negative or 1 correction. That can help improve the relationship, help improve the dynamic in the home, and help reduce blow-ups. The 4th tip is to help learn about the gaming our teenager is doing. Now, it's good to do this to help us learn about our kiddo, help learn about our teenager, and help build that bond. It's good to be curious and ask questions, open-ended questions about what's going on in this game, or what's the goal or the mission here, or what do you like about this? To be curious and just explore their world. This can be really good to help build communication and trust. It's also good to point out the positives you see in their gaming. Hey, this is taking a lot of work, or gosh, this is really creative how you did this, how you built this. This is fantastic. And so really try to be authentic in your praise and really point out the good that you're seeing in their gaming. It's good to, if possible, game with your teen. Now, a lot of games are really fast paced and it's hard to know what's all happening. Okay, so it's okay if you're not very good, or it's okay if it's even not very fun. The point is to build that relationship with your teenager. It's natural to also say like, hey, I don't really like this game just because I don't understand it or I don't get it, or even if maybe it's violent and I don't like it. So when possible, it's good to be able to correct and to say this is not appropriate. Let's move towards something else. But for the most part, if it's a fine game, we just don't like it our personal selves, or we don't think it's very interesting, then let's try to refrain from judgment. Let's refrain from judging what they're doing in the game, and to, rather than just we should praise them for the pauses that we're doing in this game if possible. Now, when need be, like we're saying before, provide guidance when needed. Provide guidance in parenting whenever they need to be corrected on this is inappropriate, this is unkind, or this is something that I don't really approve of or our family approves of. And so we can move towards another game or something else that is more in line with what the family ideals are. So again, try to focus on the positives, but be able to make sure we guide and correct when needed. So in review, these are the things I would encourage you to do to help move towards a healthy school year if your teenager plays games. Transition well away from games. After the school day, when they're able to relax a little bit, transition away in a healthy, positive dynamic. It's good to have specific time frames to game after our responsibilities and after all of our chores and homework is done. Have specific time frames where they can game, but then have certain times when they cannot. It's good to praise these positive choices we're seeing in our teens with academics, with relationships, with their self-care and their self-control. Try to really encourage these positives that you see in them. And if possible, it's good to learn about their gaming, improve your relationship with them by learning about their world, and help jump into this dynamic that they can hopefully be really passionate and share with you. If you have any questions, if you would like to set up an appointment with myself or another clinician here at Escapingthe.com, we would love to provide support and guidance in moving towards a balanced, healthy screen use. We work with teenagers 13 and up, so feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions. Looking forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.